Pietro 47, Messages from Alternate Earths. Prologue. Pietro was ready for a bit of escapism. He had wanted to do some work with retro science fiction. To do that, he would need a storyline. What about alternate or parallel Earths? Perhaps one where Rome is still ruled by an emperor and they have technology equal or superior to ours. The possibilities are endless. In the brisk autumn of 1963, a clandestine laboratory nestled in the heart of Copalis Crossing became the epicenter of an unprecedented discovery. Dr. Helen Maris, a brilliant yet overlooked astrophysicist, had just initiated the first test of her experimental satellite codenamed Orion. As the control room buzzed with anticipation, Helen and her team awaited data that would hopefully deepen their understanding of cosmic radiation. Instead, what flickered onto their screens late one evening was beyond the realms of any scientific prediction. A clear, though somewhat garbled television broadcast showcasing a chariot race, vivid and raucous, as if plucked from the zenith of the Roman Empire, which, according to this signal, had never fallen. The team gasped at the screen, speechless. As the broadcast seamlessly shifted from the ancient spectacle to a news anchor draped in toga and laurel, discussing the Empire's latest architectural marvel, a colossal space station no less, named a Terranatus. Over the ensuing weeks, Orion intercepted more signals, each from a different Earth. There was a world where the Industrial Revolution had sparked in the Ming Dynasty, featuring steam-powered dragons soaring over the Great Wall. The implications were staggering. Every major news outlet clamored for a story, and soon Helen's discovery was public knowledge, leading to both awe and unrest across the globe. The U.S. government swiftly classified Helen's work, placing her and her team under strict surveillance. However, the genie could not be put back into the bottle. The knowledge of these parallel Earths seeped into the public consciousness, altering societal norms and beliefs fundamentally. Religious groups declared the broadcast divine revelations or demonic deceptions, depending on their doctrine. Philosophers debated the nature of reality. Were these truly separate worlds, or had humanity inadvertently created them through the act of observation? Throughout this societal upheaval, underground networks sprang up dedicated to capturing and interpreting these broadcasts. Helen, under constant watch, secretly sympathized with these groups. She knew that understanding these alternate histories could provide unprecedented insight into humanity's potential and its pitfalls. One night, during a covert meeting with a group of rogue scientists and philosophers, Helen proposed a bold plan to send a message to these parallel Earths. Using a modified version of Orion, they would broadcast a plea for communication, a hope to bridge the infinite gaps between worlds. The broadcast was set for a quiet night in March 1964. The group huddled around the equipment as Helen adjusted the dials and initiated the transmission. They waited for what felt like an eternity, eventually establishing a link with an alt.Earth where dinosaurs were not extinct. Another researcher in a different laboratory in the heart of Moclips, Washington, became the epicenter of one of the most successful practical applications of this communication link. Dr. Henry Ford, a brilliant yet overlooked geneticist, had been working tirelessly on a project that had, until now, seemed more at home in the pages of the science fiction novel than within the sterile walls of his lab. Dr. Ford had developed an abstract syntax notation that could be used to exchange genetic codes across satellite links. It was an audacious goal aimed at facilitating the transfer of biological data between Earth and its newly discovered alternate versions, each revealed through the enigmatic broadcast captured by the experimental satellite. One particular broadcast from an alternate Earth had captivated the lab's imagination. In this parallel reality, Triceratops had never gone extinct. Instead, they had been domesticated and were the primary beast of burden, plowing fields and carrying loads, fulfilling the role that horses play on Earth for almost 6,000 years. Fascinated by the possibilities, Dr. Ford proposed an audacious experiment to exchange the genetic code of the horse with that of the Triceratops. By late 1964, after intense preparations and utilizing his innovative syntax notation, Dr. Ford succeeded. Genetic blueprint of the Triceratops was transmitted from an alternate Earth, and the horse DNA was sent in return. Under the strictest secrecy, Ford and his team embarked on the next phase of their project, breeding the first Earth-born Triceratops. The process was fraught with challenges, but after months of trying, the lab's efforts bore fruit. A living, breathing Triceratops hatched from a genetically modified ostrich egg, chosen for its size and durability. The creature, named Trixie, was a marvel, robust and surprisingly gentle, embodying all the characteristics seen in the broadcast. However, something unexpected occurred as Trixie grew. Unlike her docile kin on the alternate Earth, she was a bit brighter, with the intelligence of a monkey or a dolphin or an octopus. And one day, she opened the latch to her pen and lumbered down to the beach, working her way south to Pacific Beach. It was a chilly morning in May 1965 when Dr. Henry Ford discovered the empty pen. Trixie, the Triceratops, had become the pride of a secretive genetic laboratory in Moclips, Washington, and she was gone. Initially bred as part of a groundbreaking experiment involving genetic data exchange with a parallel Earth, Trixie had grown smarter and more curious than anyone had anticipated. Ford hurried down to the beach following the massive, distinctive tracks left in the sand. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and awe. Trixie was not just any Triceratops. She was a marvel of modern science, a creature whose intelligence seemed to rival that of Earth's most clever animals. The beach was bustling with activity. It was the day of the King low tide, and dozens of locals, equipped with shovels, clam guns, and buckets, had flocked to Mocrox Beach for the razor clam dig. The atmosphere was festive, with families and friends laughing and digging, unaware of the extraordinary visitor approaching from the north. As Trixie lumbered into view, the clam diggers froze, their joyous chatter turning into stunned silence. The sight of a Triceratops, alive and real, was something none of them had ever imagined they would see outside of a cinema screen or the pages of a pulp magazine. But Trixie, intelligent and seemingly aware of her own spectacle, didn't pause. She seemed fascinated by the people and their activities. Her massive beak gently prodded the sand, mimicking the diggers. Children, initially fearful, soon laughed and ran around her as she remained calm and curious. Dr. Ford arrived just in time to see Trixie surrounded by awestruck beachgoers. He had expected chaos, perhaps panic, but what unfolded was something entirely different, a scene of wonder and peaceful coexistence. "Trixie," Ford called out, his voice filled with relief and a tinge of admonishment. The Triceratops turned, recognizing the voice of her creator. She made a soft cooing sound, almost like she was apologizing for the trouble she had caused. Ford approached her slowly, his hand extended. "It's time to go home, Trixie," he said gently, aware that dozens of eyes were watching every movement. In the days that followed, the story of Trixie's escape and the clam dig she had turned into an impromptu meet and greet spread far and wide. Debates ignited over the ethical implications of genetic engineering, and Dr. Ford found himself at the center of a discussion about the rights and treatment of genetically recreated beings. In addition, this use of information exchanged with an alternate Earth rekindled the debates around the control and use of Dr. Helen Morris satellite link. About that time, the second successful connection was established. Suddenly the screen lit up with a response. It was from the world of the Roman Empire, with the news anchor, Edison Sagittus, appearing, his face marked by an expression of both confusion and curiosity. Helen's Latin was rusty at best, but she mused, "And they called Latin a dead language." While the two Earths were very different, they also had a lot in common. Neither Earth was united or at peace. Sagittus' closest analog to World War I, a war with tanks, was Persia and their allies, and the Greeks and theirs. When Helen explained that democracy in the U.S. was stressed by the extreme factions and misinformation, Sagittus strongly encouraged her to tell people to try to keep democracy alive, advising, "You don't want to be around when Nero is emperor." They talked about immigration. Sagittus explained the Roman solution had simply put a high bar on citizenship. Serve 10 years in the army and get citizenship and a small plot of land. That is, if you live. The scientists hoped that they would be able to facilitate the creation of diplomatic channels. Perhaps there were ideas from not-so-ancient Rome that would be helpful to the nations of our Earth. When Sagittus heard about the deep divisions between Republicans and Democrats in the United States, he suggested creating an advisory body of both blue and red-leaning individuals, a sort of Concilium Principis, or a National Security Council reporting to Congress. It would be composed of all races and genders that were experts in their fields and willing to seek compromise. Their principal responsibility would be to flag legislation that was harmful to the future of the nation. They also compiled reports on legislators that created more harm than good, resulting in the forced resignation of Marjorie Taylor Greene 60 years later. Epilogue. Pietro had enjoyed illustrating a retro sci-fi story, especially the part about Trixie, the friendly Triceratops. He decided to do a second one called Cosmic Ray, when alternate civilization was in a permanent state of ecstasy as a use of biological warfare in a war situation. The end. Ahuiho, and may God bless.